Just because he saw something he shouldn't have, this boy instantly fell head over heels for that person's lips. He was determined to drag them into his not-so-pure friendship. And just like that, he stubbornly twisted both himself and the other person. Too bad the beautiful scene didn't last long because, for many reasons, the two had to part ways. 5 years later, when they met again, they realized that the other person had always been waiting for him. His name is Lac Lam Vien, a rich second-generation playboy. He's been a weak and sickly troublemaker since childhood, earning the nickname Princess Lac from everyone. And the guy's name is Du Han, looking all dapper. With impressive achievements, he's just a pitiful fate. He's lived with his grandmother since he was little and is known as the Poor Prince. At this moment, our Princess Lac is sunbathing to watch Du Han play ball. Sure enough, he has tattoos. Lac Lam Vien can see the tattoo clearly hidden under the white uniform's sleeve. His best friend lets out a soft gasp. Isn't that Du Han? What's he doing? Is he seriously competing for girls with me? Ah, this scene is like a Samoyed angrily staring at a Tibetan Mastiff, ready to pounce and bite. Too bad the Tibetan Mastiff doesn't even glance at Lac Lam Vien. Feeling like Du Han is just too handsome, he can't handle it. Princess Lac takes a leap down to the court, but his weak body makes him a bit dizzy. He really hates this body of his. Lac Lam Vien glances at the guy on the court and accidentally locks eyes with him. Du Han freezes for a moment before instinctively breaking into a gentle smile. Princess Lac pretends to be disgusted by him. How can he wipe his sweat with such a dirty shirt? Gross. After that, he turns and walks away. The truth is, Lac Lam Vien doesn't understand why. He came to watch the game in the blazing midday sun. It's not that he suddenly has a crush on Du Han, it's because that day, he accidentally saw Du Han kiss someone else. At that moment, Lac Lam Vien's thoughts were just so intense, his lips seemed to be kissed, until they were flushed, like that red velvet cake he loves, looking both sweet and tempting. Lac Lam Vien finds this situation really scary. Why is he interested in a man's lips? As soon as he gets back to class, his girlfriend grabs his hand and sits directly on his lap. Her arms wrap around his neck, and Lac Lam Vien instantly frowns, sulking and grinding his teeth. He turns and runs straight out the door, and Phuong Tu teases him, saying he's not afraid of being dumped. Lam Vien doesn't respond. His head is filled with the gentle scent of a girl. What's so great about kissing a guy? Why is Du Han hugging someone? He feels a bit disgusted, thinking maybe he's already growing facial hair. Plus, just now, he even lifted his shirt to wipe his sweat. What if the person Du Han kissed actually likes that dirty face? Lac Lam Vien buries his face in his arms, unable to think any further. So stupid. School's out. Ha-Fu gently pokes him. Her boyfriend is here. Inside, Ha-Fu feels a bit smug. He only just came to apologize, and she can't easily forgive him. She has to save face, and as a result, she sees her boyfriend walking towards Nam Tu. Nam Tu looks a bit confused. Hey, what's up with you? Du Han and Nam Tu, these two names together really make a silly couple. Wait, what are you doing in this 10th grade class? It's not until someone pulls his hand that he remembers he came to comfort his girlfriend. Lac Lam Vien unwraps a piece of candy in his hand and pops it straight in. Du Han gap yin ji song chu ni rom gan gap en ku di ngo jing jing. Radio. Kaumati hong sip ni tamai, jungkratang mi kun dung mu ko. Kautung ruwa kaumati ni perplob fan sao. Leklam wien put luk omne mu lao gayet kapaile. Kwam pit plat ti mai samat haya pai dang angai. Tua ing gatong raksa na tapon. Kutu klape jafan kong to. Dun pai tang hienju du mung mung pun rien kun ni. Mi rung araira, yu han, hienju song chu ni rom gun. Niman ku rak ti ngo jing jing. Diogon na, tamati chan sibni tamai. Jon kratang mi kundung muto. To tungdai jamdai wa tamati ni puplob fan sao. La kalin wien ka luk omne mu la kayat kopai. At this moment, Ha-Fu's mouth was in the way, and Lac Lam Vien was lightly patted by someone, asking him to move aside. He tilted his head. He saw Du Han wiping sweat with his hand, saying, "My classmate wants to go inside." Lac Lam Vien immediately stopped, feeling strange. The icy mountain that had been cold for 1,000 years was blushing, while Lac Lam Vien thought, how can he make even saying he wants to go sound so ambiguous? That night, the group decided to hit the bar, and the driver mentioned a place called Blue Note, but it was fine because it was all guys getting out of the car. Lac Lam Vien scoffed. A bar full of guys. Du Han would definitely want to go in, but a good student probably wouldn't come to a place like this, right? But just a second later, Du Han appeared right in front of him. What made him lose his cool was that he actually walked into Blue Note. Lac Lam Vien initially planned to follow him, but was held back by his girlfriend grabbing his wrist, saying, "Where are you going? They are over there." His heart raced faster. How could Du Han be so eager? School wasn't enough. Now he was here too. A few people sat down, and Lac Lam Vien didn't drink because he thought the glass was dirty, the atmosphere was unpleasant, and Hop Fu wasn't happy either. Since as soon as she saw her boyfriend walk in, a bunch of girls stared at him. She pulled Lac Lam Vien's hand, saying, "Let's go home. I need to be back by 11. Lac Lam Vien stood up, saying, "I'll take you home." After dropping Hop Fu off, Lac Lam Vien returned to the bar. But this time, he headed straight to Blue Note. He hesitated a bit but thought if Duhan dared to go in, what was there to be afraid of? If he saw him, his expression would definitely be something special. The moment he pushed the door open, Lac Lam Vien immediately felt the eyes from all directions, direct and naked. He scanned around but didn't see Duhan, letting out a small sigh of relief. However, just a second later, Duhan appeared, holding a cocktail shaker, his movements skillful, his expression indifferent. Lac Lam Vien stared at him, letting out a small huff. It seemed he had overestimated him. As soon as he entered the bar, he was like a peacock spreading its tail. "Can I get a drink from you, classmate?" Duhan paused and calmly replied, "Please show your ID." Lac Lam Vien was stunned, like, what the heck? He himself wasn't old enough, and just then, a guy placed his hand on his shoulder saying, "Kid, you can't drink if you're not of age." Lac Lam Vien immediately glared. "Get your dirty hand off me!" Unexpectedly, the guy didn't let go but leaned down to sniff, saying, "Definitely the scent of youth." Lac Lam Vien panicked. The man snatched the hat off his head, asking, "Why are you wearing a hat at night?" Lac Lam Vien looked back with wide eyes, cuteness on another level. The guy's eyes sparkled as he leaned in closer. Duhan immediately pushed the guy's shoulder down, saying, "He's not of age. I advise you to find someone else." Unexpectedly, the man slid his hand up Duhan's arm, saying, "Actually, I prefer guys like you." As soon as he finished speaking, Lac Lam Vien pushed their hands away, saying, "Stop it." The guy suddenly laughed, saying, "Isn't it better to be early? Are you two a couple? Then I won't disturb you." Lac Lam Vien immediately turned around, saying, "What are you talking about?" After the guy left, Lac Lam Vien kept staring at Duhan, his heart filled with questions he wanted to ask. At that moment, someone came over, saying, "Little Du from the band can't make it. You go up and replace him." Duhan nodded, pulling down the gloves. His strong and attractive movements made Lac Lam Vien's heart race again. Why Lac Lam Vien jung jong ta ko, yang krot jat bloy mu sokapra kong ko ok bai. Mai kat kid wa chai kon an ja mai bloy mu, te yang nom tu long bai dom. Man ku klin kong kon num sao. Wai Lac Lam Vien tok jai tanti, chai kon an dung muok ok jak war ko, tamai tong sai muok na ton klang kun. Duong ta kong Wai Lac Lam Vien mong klap by yang narak chai kunan, mi sang prakai, na ta may samat kup kum dai komaklai. Duhan reeb got lai chai kunan long ko yang may tung ayu, chan net nam hay kun ha kunun dikwa. May kad kit wa chai kunan jalun mu kun bai ti mu kong Duhan jing jing. La chan chob bap kun makwa put jub Wai Lac Lam Vien ga plak mu tung song ok. Yutna, chai kunan hura ok maputwa, dimai tararoni, song kunip and kuganra, ngan chan jamay rub kuanik. Wai Lac Lam Vien hun klap tanti, ko put arai nia, lang chak chai kun an chakbai. Wai Lac Lam Vien yang kong jong du hun na zai tempedoi kam tam. Kanat nan mi kun dun koma. Jau nu ne wong dun tri, mi kun may samat ma tini dai. Kun bai tanta, du hun payak na. Swum tung mu lao dung long. Tatan keng rang, la mi sene ta may huajai kong Wai Lac Lam Vien ten rang i krung. Pushai kun an dun jakbai. La kalin, wien yang kong jong mong, yu hun jai tempedoi kam tam ti yak tam don ni, mi kun, dun koma. Sio yu na wang don 3, mi kon mai ma, taloy kun pai tan yu han payak na dung tung mu ok. Gan klun wai ti keng rang, la mi sane ta mai huajai kong lakalin wien ten rang i krung. After drinking, Duhan left a cup behind, and then Lac Lam Vien stared at that glass of milk. This is just disrespectful. Who is that? Duhan sat down in front of the electronic organ. As the music started playing, Lac Lam Vien seemed to understand why. At school, everyone called him the Prince of Sa. He really does have that kind of aura. Plus, he's super handsome, with long eyelashes that make you wonder. The two were sitting close together. Is your face itchy? Is that long eyelash brushing against you? Just like that, dude. He unconsciously drank half the glass of milk. Lac Lam Vien was startled, realizing he just used a public cup on the street. What am I doing? What's going on? He came here to find Duhan, but he looked at him like a distant classmate. It's strange but also makes sense. They were just distant classmates, and he was the only one with a crush on him. Even though he had seen him kiss someone else, knowing he worked at a bar, the reality between the two of them was nothing. Lac Lam Vien gritted his teeth. This can't be happening. He can ignore me like this. On the other side, Duhan just finished his shift and was about to leave. Lac Lam Vien called out to him, "Where are you going? Does Nyumtu know you're here? Duhan immediately stopped and turned. He said, "Follow me." Lac Lam Vien smiled smugly as Duhan led him into a small alley filled with trash. He was just about to say something when Duhan grabbed his collar, slamming his back and head against the hard wall, making him cry out in pain. Duhan was also taken aback. "Is it that painful?" Tears immediately welled up in Lac Lam Vien's eyes as he squirmed. "It's so dirty, what are you doing?" Oh, Duhan frowned. "Don't talk nonsense. Nyumtu has nothing to do with this." Lac Lam Vien glared at him. "Oh really? You two really have nothing going on? Give me your shirt." Duhan was momentarily stunned by his words. "What?" Lac Lam Vien was anxious, taking off his shirt. He was almost going crazy. Duhan instinctively took a few steps back. "Actually, I'm scared too." Lac Lam Vien was so mad he was stomping his feet. "Stop talking nonsense. My back is really dirty already. Hurry up and change. Give me your shirt, or I'll spill everything." Duhan helplessly unbuttoned his shirt and handed it to him. Lac Lam Vien was so flustered by the fear of dirt that he didn't even notice Duhan's 8-pack abs. "Help me take off my shirt, I don't want to touch this shirt." Duhan had to give in. Helping him take off his shirt, he even teased, "Do you want me to put this shirt on for you too, little princess?" Lac Lam Vien's face turned a bit red. The smell on Duhan was indeed a chaotic mix. He turned his head. "You can call me that," Duhan replied casually. "I just hear others call you that, but this shirt really suits you." "There." Lac Lam Vien bristled again. "Right? You want to wear my shirt?" Duhan grabbed his hand. "Be reasonable. I can't go home shirtless." Lac Lam Vien rolled his eyes. "Fine, if you really want to wear it, go ahead." After saying that, he tried to walk away but was pulled back by Duhan. "You still haven't answered my question." Lac Lam Vien was extremely annoyed with his childish antics, trying to raise his hand to resist but was caught by him. His hand almost pressed against the wall again. Lac Lam Vien turned pale with fear. "Don't get mad, just talk." Duhan squeezed his chin. "Why did you mention Nyumtut? Answer me, or it won't just stop here." Lac Lam Vien's face turned bright red. Clearly he was being threatened. But why did he find the smell in his palm so pleasant? He smiled. "You take me home, you shower, and I'll talk." Duhan's expression was a bit strange. "You want to come home with me?" Lac Lam Vien felt a little flustered. "Yes, don't think too much, I just feel dirty." 20 minutes later, Lac Lam Vien gently brushed the frame. "Yes, don't think too much, I just feel dirty." 20 minutes later, Lac Lam Vien gently stroked the frame. "Oh my god, Duhan looks just like my mom said. How can he be so handsome?" But then Duhan immediately slams the picture frame down, like, "Don't go rummaging through my stuff." He hands over a shirt to Lac Lam Vien, saying there's no new one left. "This one's been washed, you can't wear it, Lac Lam." Vien sniffs it and, it really does smell good. It's the scent of fabric softener and sunshine. Duhan sees this and feels a bit awkward. Lac Lam Vien notices his expression and says, "Don't think too much, I'm straight." Duhan shoots back, "Who said I wasn't?" Vien is left speechless, so he just heads straight to the bathroom. As soon as he turns on the shower, cold water hits him, making him shiver. Hearing the scream, Duhan can only feel helpless. Why is Lac Lam so extra? Lac Lam Vien, looking all pitiful like a wet puppy, complains, "Why doesn't your house have hot water? I'm freezing." Duhan can't help but feel a bit awkward, saying, "Put on some clothes, I'm coming in to check." Lac Lam Vien obediently replies with a yeah. Duhan brings a thick towel and starts to dry him off, but Vien hesitates, saying he's already used it. Duhan just wraps it around him anyway. "You're wearing my shirt but worrying about a towel I've used?" Lac Lam Vien loses his cool. How can a shirt and a towel be the same? Who knows where you usually wrap this towel around? Duhan quickly adjusts the water to a warm temperature, telling him to shower. Then he starts cooking, thinking, "Why do I have to deal with this annoying Lac Lam Vien? He's been in there for almost half an hour. Do guys take that long to shower?" While he's thinking, he hears Lac Lam Vien calling out. He sighs, wondering how many times he'll have to sigh tonight. Lac Lam Vien points at the toilet. It's clogged. Duhan didn't catch what he said, but Lac Lam's face is all red. "The toilet's clogged. I didn't even go, just tossed some paper in and it got stuck." Duhan walks in and asks how many sheets he threw in. Lac Lam Vien hesitates. 5 or 6 sheets. After showering, I'm still wet, so I'll just wipe a bit." Duhan rubs his temples. "Just go." Lac Lam Vien hurriedly says, "You're not forcing me to stay, are you? You're the one who kept me here asking about Renzi." Duhan freezes, "Oh right, I almost forgot about that." He closes the bathroom door. "Why did you bring up Renzi?" Lac Lam Vien replies, "I saw you and him kissing on the rooftop." Duhan's expression changes. "You told someone else?" Lac Lam Vien raises his fur. "I didn't say anything worth mentioning." Duhan is still suspicious, and Lac Lam Vien is about to explode. "Believe it or not, it's up to you. I didn't say a word." Lac Lam Vien is in pain and immediately hugs Duhan's foot. Duhan quickly reaches out to support his waist. Lac Lam Vien turns around, playing the villain. What are you doing, touching my waist? Duhan can't help but laugh, finding it amusing how these straight boys always think if someone's gay, they'll like them. He turns to open the bathroom door. I think you're misunderstanding something. Even if I really liked guys, I still wouldn't like you. Lac Lam Vien is left speechless. His mind is all jumbled, and he finally manages to say, Who said I liked you? This time, Duhan reaches out. Can I help you now, little princess? Lac Lam Vien bristles. Don't call me that, he huffs, jumping out. Duhan hands him a bottle of medicine. Rub it on yourself. Lac Lam Vien replies bluntly, I don't know how. Duhan has no choice but to sit down and help him, doing it so delicately it doesn't feel like a guy's leg at all. He awkwardly looks away and starts rubbing. Duhan le nang long chui kao yang la iet. May mun ka kong puchailoy. Ka rusuk may kai diloy. Lub da bai lao rum ta. Ok bai kang nok. Yu hun. Yun quot ya haita. Pu haita ta ing lakalin wien tob trong trong. May rutatam. Yu hun jing nang long chui to yang la iet. May mun kap ka kong puchailoy. Ka rusuk may sabai jai loy. Lub da lao lam ta. Lightly Lac Lam Vien whispered softly, his voice particularly whiny. Duhan immediately froze, and Lac Lam Vien quickly covered his mouth. Ugh, what was I just rambling about? Duhan felt a strange sensation thanks to him. Just bear with it a bit. Lac Lam Vien nodded, gritting his teeth to endure the pain while letting him rub. Who knew that as soon as he clamped his mouth shut, a sound escaped? It got even more ambiguous. Duhan frowned. Can you not moan like that, little princess? He got angry again. Who's moaning? It's because you're rubbing too badly. I'm pulling my foot back, I'm done. But as soon as my foot touches the shoe, it hurts. The sharp pain made him gasp. Seeing this, Duhan kindly reminded him to just wear my slippers, Lac Lam. Vien didn't bother to respond. No need, I can just wear socks. Duhan coldly replied, the dog downstairs usually. Goes to the bathroom in the hallway. You must want to walk in socks, right? In the end, Lac Lam Vien still wore Duhan's slippers, feeling heroic. Pulling out 100 yuan, consider it me buying your slippers. Duhan was doing homework while saying thanks for the support. The door just closed, and there was a knock again. Lac Lam Vien felt a bit embarrassed. I don't remember the way, you. Can you take me a bit? Duhan flatly refused. I'm busy, just use your phone to open the GPS. Lac Lam Vien felt warm. Frustrated, his phone only had 8% battery left, and he still needed it to call a ride. Duhan sighed again, then just sit still while I finish my homework. Lac Lam Vien was lost in thought. Duhan, pretty handwriting, pretty face too. Duhan couldn't stand that gaze, so he looked up. He glanced back at the two of them, big eyes like small eyes. Lac Lam Vien jumped in first. What are you looking at? Duhan was speechless, in the end. Who's looking at who? Are you really that free? Lac Lam Vien felt a bit awkward. Super free, there's nothing to do at my house. While Duhan continued doing homework, you can play on your phone. Lac Lam Vien pouted. My phone is out of battery then. Study then, don't look at me. Lac Lam Vien retorted. Who's looking at you? Duhan propped his chin. Do you know how? I look right now? Lac Lam Vien was on guard. How? Duhan smiled slightly, like an elementary school student, trying hard to attract the attention of the one they like. After that, Lac Lam Vien really didn't look at Duhan anymore and bent down to read a book. Duhan couldn't help but glance over. This really did have a bit of Lac Lam Vien's demeanor. The rumors, just a refreshing person like this. Why do they keep sticking to me? Is it just a momentary interest? Either way, this is where it ends. The two of them originally didn't belong to the same world. After finishing studying, Duhan saw Lac Lam Vien off to the car. I hope when you get back to school, don't act like you know me. Lac Lam Vien paused, turning to look at Duhan with disbelief. Based on what do you decide? Whether I should know you or not? Duhan helplessly replied, Fine. If what I just said makes you uncomfortable, Lac Lam Vien interrupted. Not politely, it's very uncomfortable already. With a slam, he closed the door and walked straight away. Who knew the car would turn back? Lac Lam Vien rolled down the window. Add me as a friend. I'll transfer money to you. Duhan's expression darkened. No need. You don't owe me anything. Lac Lam Vien played another trick. I'll agree not to act like I know you at school. Is that okay? Just like that, the little princess got the contact number of the one he likes. He looked at Duhan, smug. Honestly, you made me extremely annoyed just now, but I'm the type of person the more someone doesn't want me to do something, the more I want to do it. If you're not happy, then I'm happy. After saying that, he casually walked away. Lac Lam Vien finds it funny, acting like he wants to cling to you at school. He just wants to be friends, but the next day, the little princess is totally out of it. The money he sent to Duhan to buy a shirt yesterday will automatically be refunded in 3 hours. At this moment, Lac Lam Vien quickly picks up on a few words. Duhan is leaning in, looking into the classroom as if searching for someone. Lac Lam Vien thinks, wait, aren't you pretending not to know me? Why are you looking for me now? But who knew Duhan was actually looking for Phung Tiu? Lac Lam Vien is lost in his own thoughts and feels embarrassed. Phung Tiu chats with Duhan for a bit. Lac Lam Vien squints, wondering what he wants with him. That look makes him shiver. Phung Tiu replies that Duhan is looking for him to discuss a picnic. Lac Lam Vien freezes. He's going too? Phung Tiu explains that Duhan is in charge of buying stuff for this trip, and if he has money, why not? Inside, Lac Lam Vien feels a pang of bitterness, especially since Duhan still has to take care of his grandma in the nursing home. He takes out his phone and types a bit. I'm going too. Just then, a refund notification pops up, and he hesitates. Nah, I don't want to go anymore. Phung Tiu is speechless. Your aunt is here already. Oh, Lac Lam Vien turns away with a sigh. You wouldn't understand. On the weekend, Lac Lam Vien wakes up early. Aunt and Go, what outfit should I wear to look good? Aunt and Go hands him a glass of milk. Young master, you look good in anything. Lac Lam Vien is happy, and after finishing, Aunt Na helps him wipe the white smudge off his lips. Young master can also host a party at home and invite classmates over. Lac Lam Vien's eyes light up but then dim again. Mom probably won't agree. Before heading out, he wants to say goodbye to his mom. His mom coldly reminds him, who let you in? Lac Lam Vien feels a bit scared and doesn't dare to move, taking a small step forward. Mom, I'll take landscape photos to bring back for you. You can use them as material. Lam Thu chuckles lightly. Your photography skills are as bad as your drawing talent. What you take pictures of can't even be turned into a painting. Lac Lam Vien can only retreat to the living room to ask his dad when he'll be back. Aunt and Go replies, the boss is still discussing business in America, at least another half a month. Lac Lam Vien adjusts his posture. So he won't be back to celebrate my birthday? The boss will try his best to come back. Lac Lam Vien just hums in response and lowers his head to eat his breakfast noodles. On Saturday, Lac Lam Vien waits for Duhan's group to finish playing ball to film a video together. While waiting, he buys a ton of drinks. The captain of Class 10 is super surprised. We have drinks too? Phung Tiu teases. Usually when we play ball, we don't see you bring drinks. So, do you like any of the girls from Class 10? Lac Lam Vien lazily replies, just looking at Duhan. When Duhan turns to look at him, he immediately avoids eye contact and watches him chat and laugh with the other girls. Lac Lam Vien feels a bit neglected and snorts quietly. He pulls out the remaining drinks, twists the cap, and takes a sip. If I don't give it, then I don't care. Thinking this way, he feels unhappy, realizing he's being childish. Over there, Duhan is surrounded by a bunch of people, with body bumps and sweat mixing. What's so fun about that? He doesn't care, just posing around, and they're having fun while he's just sitting there looking all pretty. On this side, Hot Fu grabs a bottle of water. I bought drinks for all of them. And you didn't buy for me? Lac Lam Vien immediately snatches it back. Don't give me these, I've already drunk them all. Hafu says he doesn't mind. Lac Lam Vien replies, I do mind. Just then, there's a little accident on the field, and Lac Lam Vien immediately stands up. Someone rushes to help the victim. Sorry bro. Duhan shakes his head. It's fine, just get some water to wash it off. Lac Lam Vien sees this and offers water. A classmate teases him. Are you trying to make Dudai Sawai hurt more? Meh krop, chanjatai pop wheel klap mahai meh. Meh samat chai pen komun dai. Lam su fung. Lakahura Yawa, Fimu Tai Pop Kong Te Ye, Mai Dang Jack Prosa Work Nikan Wad Pop. Sing Ti Ta Tai Ja Opay Ne Pop Wat Da Yang Ai, Lak Lam A, Wien Gulay Toy Club by Ne Hong Nanglen, Tam Pa Wa Murai Ja Club, Kun Kuta Bwa, Hunakam Lang Prachum Uti America, Yang Noi Ga Ik Krung Duen Lak Lam Wien Prap Ta Tang, Tayang Nan Kau Ja Make Klap Ma Push Along One Good Kong Chun La. Tamai Huna Ja Pia Yam Klap Ma Lak Lam Wien, Gake Piak Na Lo Kom Na, Gin Mu Chow Wan Sao Lak Lam. Hien ra he glum Duhan len ball set, lajapitai video due, rawang tiwang kausuna ma yut mak, captain team. Siptok jai mak. Rau gamira, fung siao sawa pokati rau len ball me hento nam mamaloy. To cha puyin konai kong em dot sip laura. Laklam wien mayak dob, ke han by mong Duhan. Mu Duhan han ma mong kau. Koka lop da tanti. La mong by ti kau gap sao sao konun un ti put kuigan yang sanuk sanan laklama wien. Rusuk noi zai like a hura yao bao bao. Au nam ti lua ak mamut, but fa kundum nam nan kum, tamay au gamay rai, chunka mayakirok, kit bab nun koka rusuk may dijingjing, lo ko dek mak. Kang nan du han tu glom rop dui glum kun mi gan chanokan kong rang gai. Ngulai romkan man sanuka laila, chan me sunjai ra ke tam tu he du di yang len sanuk bab ni lao yang yim sui ik. Kang ni ha pu tu kuat nam. Kau su nam he puak kau mut lao. Lao me su hai tula. Lak lam wien reap chui klap ma bakwa ya wang lui. Chan dim mut lao. Ha pu bakwa kau me sunjai. Lak lam me wien tobwa. Kau sunjai toni. Nay sanam bol kut hate gan lek noi. Lak lam me wien reap luk kun. Mi kun reap chui yua. Ka tot na krap pinong. Du hen sai wa. Maipen rai. Ke au nam pai lang ka pa. Lak lam wien. Hen bab nun lui. You nam ok bai. Mi puen nai chun rien. Sao wa jau nu wien jatam hai du dai. Na yai du jep kwa mai. Lakalin wien thob wa. Kawai ton ni. Ti sanam bol kut hit gan lek noi. Lakalin wien luk kun tun ti. Mi kun reap bai chui. Ye ka tot na puen you han sai wa. Maipen rai, ke au nam bai lang ka pa, lakalin wien hen, bab nun le yun nam hai mi puen rum chun. Sao sia wien to jatam hai du dai na rakwa ni. At this moment, he just realized he accidentally grabbed a Coca-Cola. Duhan looked over at Chia Te, and he wasn't the one. Holding a Coca-Cola. How am I thirsty right now? Hafu was about to say it was a Coca-Cola, but Lac Lam Vien had already drunk it, and he felt shy about it. But Lac Lam Vien just handed it over to Duhan. Hafu was stunned. Duhan popped the cap and took a few sips, then sweetly thanked him. Lac Lam Vien's face turned red. He arrogantly nodded and then turned to leave. Hafu ran after him and patted Duhan's shoulder, saying, "You know, with skin this fair, a pretty face and long legs, you must be Lac Lam Vien's girlfriend." Then Duhan looked at the Coca-Cola bottle and realized they were a couple. Hafu questioned, "Why did you give Coca-Cola to Duhan? And it was a can. You already drank it." Lac Lam Vien suddenly realized he forgot, but it didn't seem gross to him. After all, it wasn't like he was drinking Duhan's saliva. It was Duhan drinking from him. Thinking about that made his body feel hot. Hafu threw an arm around him, saying, "I only kissed you once, and after that, I even wiped my mouth with a tissue. Now that I don't feel gross anymore, how about we try again?" Lac Lam Vien slightly turned his head away. "Who said I wasn't grossed out?" Hafu leaned in. "Today your lips aren't wearing anything. Give me a chance." And after saying that, she stood on her tiptoes and gave a little kiss. "Watch out, we're in public. What are you doing?" Lac Lam Vien immediately pushed Hafu away, and in front of them were 3 people standing there. Hafu felt a bit embarrassed. Everyone had their own thoughts, but only Lac Lam Vien felt a bit disappointed. At noon, the whole group prepared to set off. Duhan handed out water to everyone and applied cooling patches. Lac Lam Vien casually accepted the items, gave him a glance, huffed lightly, and then got on the bus. Duhan was left staring, not knowing when he had annoyed the little princess. When they arrived at the site, Duhan started demonstrating how to set up the tent. The little princess eagerly wanted to try, causing everyone around to panic. Sure enough, they almost ended up with Fuang Tu getting hurt by a nail. The little princess felt a bit pitiful, thinking even an ant was more useful than her. Duhan saw this and patted her head to comfort her. Fuang Tu couldn't stay calm seeing Duhan dare to pat the little princess's head while she didn't even get mad. The harmonious scene made Fuang Tu feel sour. Duhan led the little princess to collect dry branches to prove herself. Lac Lam Vien swore he would fill a bag. When they got back to camp, Lac Lam Vien was extremely proud. He went to start a fire. "Come on," Duhan called him back, extending his hand. The little princess's face turned bright red. "What are you doing?" Duhan took out a first aid kit. "You're hurt." Lac Lam Vien squatted down. "How did you know?" In fact, all along the way, Duhan had been paying attention, worried he would bump into something or fall. When he heard the faint cry, he saw Lac Lam Vien foolishly holding a thorn branch, thinking he would be upset. Unexpectedly, he happily waved his hand and continued picking up another branch. As long as someone asked him to do something, he was that happy. Duhan put a band-aid around his arm and rewarded him with a red flower. Lac Lam Vien's face turned slightly red. "What kind of flower? I'm not in elementary school," but inside he was over the moon. Duhan patted his head again. "All right, you worked hard today. Tonight your classmates will reward you with a portion of grilled meat." But a little later, Lac Lam Vien sat by the fire, his stomach growling. Drinking Coca-Cola, he stirred the fire. Hafu walked over. "Why aren't you coming? The lemonade is almost gone." Lac Lam Vien's mouth stiffened, pretending to be disgusted, feeling it wasn't clean. Hafu agreed. "Yeah, you probably prepared your own stuff." Lac Lam Vien felt that if he stayed any longer, it would only get worse. "Tuk chon ruhoklum. Murda yin sing rong bao bao kaukahin kautu king namu, kitwa Lac Lam Vien sakrot. Dekla pobwa kau yim yam lau gep ging un tha ka ke, mi kun kai tam ngan kauka yim yam kanat ni." Tamai Yuhan tung pat plasta rob kan ko. Lao hai ko dok mai sidang nung dok lak lum wien rusuk nadang nitnoi. Dok mai sidang alila. Chun me chinak rian pratum. Then I zai koka di zai mak. Yuhan yang lup hua ko. Aula, one ni nui mak lao. Pun nak rian. Lak kun ni jahirang wang kopen nu yang. Demay nan. Lang jek nan. Lak lam wien nang yu kong kong fai. Tong hiu dum kok plik kong fai. Ha pu don kauma. Tamai kome arkbebok layman de mot launa. Lak lam wien tampak yun tam ta rang kiets. Rusuk me saad ha pu piak na. Katuk dong. Kong triam kong wai sam rap eng. Lak lam wien rusuk wa tanang dopai ka ying. Han pai. Ha fu don kauma. Tamai me arkbai na mot now. Jamot launa. Lakalin wien tampak. Yun tam ta rang kiets. Rusuk me saad. Hafu piak na kachai. Kong triam kong wai sam rap eng. Lakalin wien rusuk wa. Tanang dopai jaying. Hungry but not wanting to lose face, Laklam Vien quickly approached Duhan. Where are you going? Hurry up and grab it. If you don't, it'll be taken away. Laklam Vien opened the box to find a pair of golden, greasy, grilled chicken wings inside. He put on gloves and took a bite. Oh my god, it was so good, like the most delicious and warmest thing he had ever eaten. But later, Laklam Vien was annoyed. Because the camping situation was ridiculous, someone signed him up to share a tent with Hot Fu. He originally wanted to stay with Fung Tiu, but that side was already full. Now he had no choice but to find Duhan to cancel the registration. Duhan pulled out the registration sheet. So, who do you plan to stay with? In that moment, Laklam Vien felt embarrassed, like it was saying he had no friends. He lifted his chin proudly and said, I don't like staying with others. Can I have a tent to myself? No. Duhan looked at the number of tents. That's probably not possible. The little princess was furious and decided to look for an inn. Duhan followed her, saying it was late and the driver only made 2 trips. I'll just go down the mountain myself. The little princess thought for a moment. Duhan put away the list. There was still 1 tent with space. Laklam Vien immediately replied, I don't want to stay with strangers. Before he could finish, he heard Duhan say, That's my tent. Laklam Vien quickly turned around as Duhan took out bread and milk for him. You didn't eat much at the BBQ earlier. Laklam Vien obediently took a bite, his eyes wide, and secretly noted the brand. Duhan originally planned to set up the tent later by himself, which would be fine, but unexpectedly, a little princess fell from the sky, looking quite pitiful. After setting up the tent, Duhan went to wash his face while Laklam Vien took out his small blanket. When Duhan walked in, he immediately saw the little princess sitting there with a crumb of bread stuck to the corner of her mouth, looking confused. Without thinking much, he stepped forward to wipe the crumbs off her lips. Just then, Laklam Vien was about to stick out his tongue to lick the corner of his mouth, and both froze. Duhan quickly withdrew his hand and turned to run outside. Laklam Vien only then realized that it was Duhan's hand. Duhan's face was gloomy as he washed his hands. Laklam Vien stole a glance, thinking, What's this? I'm not even in a hurry to rinse my mouth. With his competitive nature, he was so mad he rinsed his mouth for 10 minutes. When he returned, Duhan was already lying down, the rustling sound making him feel a bit helpless. He turned to look and saw a patch of creamy white skin. Laklam Vien seemed to sense that gaze and suddenly remembered that Duhan liked men, so he quickly turned his head to look away. When he saw Duhan still quietly lying with his back to him, he breathed a sigh of relief. The princess was tossing and turning, unable to sleep, while Duhan was disturbed and couldn't take it anymore. Why aren't you asleep yet? Laklam Vien cheerfully replied, I can't sleep, then play on your phone. Laklam Vien was a bit annoyed waiting for Duhan to fall asleep again, so he kept squirming. Duhan had no choice but to pull up the blindfold and start an involuntary chat mode. Laklam Vien excitedly asked, Do you know why my name is Laklam Vien? It's because my dad's last name is Lak, my mom's last name is Lam, and my name has both their surnames. What about you? Why are you named Duhan? Because when I was born, the weather was still cold. Duhan was silent for a long time, so long that Laklam Vien thought he had fallen asleep, until he finally heard him say, Because she looked at me and felt cold-hearted. Laklam Vien was stunned. How can that be? Isn't there any mother who doesn't love her child? Duhan's voice was a bit cold. She didn't want to give birth to me, but because of her body, she couldn't get rid of me. Laklam Vien felt that Duhan was being sincere with him, treating him like a friend, so he reached out his hand. Duhan was a bit annoyed. What now? It's because my dad's last name is Lak, my mom's last name is Lam, and my name has both of their surnames. What about you? Why is your name Duhan? Because when I was born, the weather was still cold. Duhan was silent for a long time, so long that Laklam Vien thought he had fallen asleep, until he finally heard him say, Because she looked at me and felt cold-hearted. Laklam Vien was taken aback. How can that be? What mother doesn't love her child? Duhan's voice was a bit cold. She didn't want to give birth to me, but because of her body, she couldn't get rid of me. Lac Lam Vien felt that Duhan was being sincere with him, treating him like a friend, so he reached out his hand. Duhan was a bit annoyed, asking, "What else?" Duhan mut hantang, jung dung pa pita, rum ho mut kuigan bat mai tem jai, Lac Lam Vien thun ten, tam wat terumai tamai chun chu Lac Lam Vien. Mai chai pro pa shun namasagul lak me shun namasagul lam, chu shun mi namasagul kong tang song kun. Ngan tamai ta shu Duhan, protonti shun good. Akas yang nao yu, Duhan nyip by nan mak, jun Lac Lam Vien kitwa, kalap by lao tung da yin koputwa, prome hen chun lo jai yen long Lac Lam Vien ung. Tamai tung ben bab nun mai mi ma, kun I me rak luk rock. Sieng kong Duhan yen cha, ma komayak hai kokut, de prot rank I jung mai samat. Ploi by dai Lac Lam Vien. Rusik wa Duhan jing jai tok ho. Mong ko mun puen jing yun mu ok by Duhan rusik mut nidi glau. Ton medai, la kalin wien rusik wa, Yuhan jing jai kap ko mong ko mun puen le, yun mu ok by, Yuhan rusik muting nidi glau. Here's our gentle little princess. I see your name doesn't mean that. Duhan means winter. Passing by means spring is coming. Duhan, you are that spring. The next day, Lac Lam Vien woke up to see Duhan unzipping the tent. He turned around. Smiling, the sun has risen. Lac Lam Vien was stunned. Compared to the sunrise, the person in front of him seemed even more beautiful than Duhan. Realization hit. That dazed look, Lac Lam Vien felt like he was caught red-handed. Flustered, he replied, "You're beautiful too." They both stepped out. Outside the tent, Duhan suddenly said, "Thank you." Lac Lam Vien was confused. "Thank you for what?" Duhan looked at him, grateful. "Thank you for telling me that my name has another meaning." On the way back, Hatfu felt like Lac Lam Vien had changed, making her a bit uneasy. Lac Lam Vien grabbed Hatfu's hand. "Don't squeeze it anymore, it's turning red." Hatfu looked pleased. "Okay, I'll hold your hand then." Unexpectedly, Lac Lam Vien pulled his hand away. A month was about to pass, and Hatfu's eyes immediately turned red. Earlier, they said they would just be boyfriend and girlfriend, but Hatfu thought during this time she could completely win Lac Lam Vien's heart, yet the distance between them grew further. Getting off the car, the atmosphere between them became strange. Lac Lam Vien was thinking of how to talk to Hatfu when he heard nearby. The team leader was saying something. "Why haven't you been around these past few days? Everyone's worried about you." Duhan replied, "I'm really busy tonight." The team leader nodded in agreement to let him take a break. Lac Lam Vien felt a bit disappointed and called out, "Come hang out with us. Do you have to work tonight? How much can you earn in one night?" Shuhan's face immediately turned cold. "No need. I told you not to joke about money." Never had he seen someone so cold. Lac Lam Vien was stunned. After a while, he lifted his foot to chase after him, but then hesitated when he saw Duhan patting Num Tu, chatting about something. Those two looked very close. At least in Lac Lam Vien's eyes, this atmosphere was not something outsiders could interrupt. He turned away, not wanting to look anymore. What was there to see? He didn't want to be like a pitiful person standing silently by. That night, during the gathering, Lac Lam Vien sat in a corner feeling down, drinking with Fung Tiu. Although he wanted to take care of him, the general atmosphere of the class was very lively. By the time Fung Tiu was tipsy and turned around to look for him, Lac Lam Vien had disappeared. At this moment, Lac Lam Vien was drunkenly squatting by the roadside, feeling dizzy and wanting to stand up, but his legs were weak. A mature-looking girl walked over. "Hey, little brother, are you okay?" Lac Lam Vien didn't want to talk, pulling the hoodie over his head. The woman didn't leave, reaching out to touch his face. "Are you feeling unwell? Come home with me." Lac Lam Vien frowned, biting his lip and not speaking. He was afraid that if he opened his mouth, he would throw up, so he held it in. If he threw up, it would be a mess. The woman, seeing this, became even more interested. "So cute, my house is nearby. Tomorrow I can drive you home." Saying that, she leaned in close, taking a sniff at his neck. "You smell so good." Lac Lam Vien quickly covered his mouth. "I'm about to throw up." The woman's expression darkened, pushing him away. "What do you mean?" Unexpectedly, Lac Lam Vien turned to run. As a result, not looking where he was going, he bumped right into a guy carrying a big bag of trash. Smelling the trash, he finally couldn't hold it in and threw up. He felt like his whole body was falling apart. Duhan stood behind him. "Can you even stand up?" The woman looked at him. The woman's face darkened, pushing him away. "What do you mean?" Unexpectedly, Lac Lam Vien turned to run. As a result, not looking where he was going, he bumped into a guy carrying a big trash bag. Smelling the garbage, he finally couldn't hold it in and threw up, feeling like his whole body was falling apart. Duhan stood behind him. "Can you still stand up?" The woman looked at him. "Pu ying nun me yam bai, yang jun mu bai sampas na kong ko." Tutamwa Tame Sabira, Glaban Kapito, Laklam Wien Kumwat Q Katfan Mayput. Kaukluwa Taput Pak Ja Achienok Maloi, Tongwat Ton, Tatayokma Jasukaprak, Mak Puying Hinbabnan Ying Sunjai. Narakjang Ban Pi Yuklai Kani Ing, Prungni Pisamat Kaprot, Pata Klap Dai, Put Jub Ta Kau Klai Sut Klin Ti Ka Kong Kau. Homjang Luklam Wien Reap Bit Bak, Shantong Achien, Lao Sapap Kong Puying Blien Bai Den Kawak. Ta Mai Kwam Wa Arai, Kraijaruwa, Luklam Wien Hantua Jawing, Pon Ku Prop Mai Mong Tang. Kau Chun Kau Kap Chai Num Kunung, Titu Tung Kaya Yai, Glin Kaya, Tame Kau Mai. He looked over at the waiter. Do you know him? Duhan shot her a cold glance. It made her freeze up. He's really handsome, but his personality is the worst, Luklam Vien. He shifted his feet to keep her away. The woman laughed. Looks like he doesn't know An at all. Just a second later, Duhan grabbed him by the face. Luklam Vien was blushing, struggling, saying he just held a trash bag. Duhan was unfazed, saying he even threw up. That was way worse. He pointed at the woman next to him. Do you want to go with her? Luklam Vien was confused. She's an AI. The woman was speechless and got in the car. She left, arrogantly flipping them the bird. Duhan turned to Luklam Vien, asking what he was doing here. Little did he know, Luklam Vien was even more agitated than him. You think I came to find you? They insisted on coming here to hang out. After saying that, he turned to leave, but after just a few steps, he sat down. Duhan was both annoyed and amused, thinking what kind of act is this now? Luklam Vien looked at him with puppy eyes. Duhan, my stomach hurts. Duhan chuckled, extending his hand. This hand just held the trash bag. Luklam Vien firmly grabbed his hand. I just threw up too, don't judge me, AI. AI, so Lak little princess. Proudly walked back into the house. After showering, Duhan felt warmer. He asked. Duhan was sitting doing homework. Do you have something to drink? Duhan didn't look up. There's a kettle boiling in the kitchen. Luklam Vien replied with a casual, uh-huh, and went to look for it. Hearing the clattering, Duhan found it strange and went over, only to discover the sound was coming from the bathroom. Duhan didn't look up. There's a kettle boiling in the kitchen. Luklam Vien replied with a sound, pretending to be familiar, as he went to look for it. Hearing the clattering sound, Duhan found it strange, and went over to discover that the sound was coming from the bathroom. When he opened the door, he saw Luklam Vien staring at the toilet, kicking it a few times. Duhan said it doesn't feel pain. Hitting it is pointless. Luklam Vien jumped. I was just tapping it playfully. Duhan clearly didn't believe this guy. He was definitely getting revenge for that time he got kicked in the foot. Finally got some water. Luklam Vien sat on the sofa, holding a glass of water, puffing his cheeks and blowing for a long time, and ended up burning his lips when he drank. That sound really made it hard not to pay attention. Duhan put down his pen, turned around to take a look, and saw Lak little princess sticking out his tongue because it was hot. Luklam Vien, seeing Duhan staring at him, reluctantly said, I'll leave right after I drink this. Duhan stood up, looking straight at him, making Luklam Vien feel a bit scared. He thought Duhan was angry. But it wasn't that serious, right? Luklam Vien felt a bit resentful inside. After drinking, I'll leave, and I'll return the shirt too. Duhan didn't bother to respond, walking straight into the kitchen, bringing out a bowl. Vien feel a bit scared. He thought Duhan was angry, but it wasn't that serious, right? Luklam Vien felt a little wronged. After I finish drinking, I'll go, and I'll return the shirt too. Duhan didn't bother to pay attention, going straight into the kitchen, bringing out a bowl of ice. Open your mouth. Luklam Vien was taken aback, but still opened his mouth to take the ice. Duhan poured the remaining ice into his glass and returned to the table, continuing to write. Luklam Vien was chewing on the ice, squinting a bit and blowing. Long ne keo kong ko, la klapai tito, kien kan ban to laksan lam wien, la munam keng ne pak, ta ka rilong, la yang pawik. Talong ne keo kong ko la klapai tito. Kien kan ban to lakalin, wien la ka kaya, klitnam keng, ne pak rita, lo yim.